Imagine a king in the 1500s, standing in a hall lined with gold, coins glittering in his hands, declaring that his empire will last forever. A century later, his vaults are empty, his people are starving, and his empire is drowning in debt. Now, fast forward to today. Nations rise and fall under the same illusion, that wealth built on gold and credit will never fade. But it always does. Tell me in the comments, from which country are you watching this right now? Because today, we're uncovering a secret pattern that has shaped every empire in history, from ancient Rome to modern America. The pattern of gold, debt, and collapse. 0 and 33. The beginning. Gold and power. Gold, the eternal symbol of wealth and power. For thousands of years, civilizations have worshipped it, killed for it, and built their empires upon it. But Gold's story isn't one of glory, it is one of greed and fragility. In his book, War and Gold, a 500-year history of empires, adventures, and debt, historian Kwasi Kwarteng wrote, "The need to pay for wars was the principal engine of modern finance." And that's the truth. Gold wasn't just a luxury, it was a weapon. It fueled the conquests of the Spanish crown, the voyages of the British Empire, and the industrial expansion of Europe. But behind every golden empire stood a darker force, debt. Spain, for instance, became rich beyond imagination when its ships brought gold and silver from the Americas in the 1500s. Yet within decades, Spain declared bankruptcy, not once but 4 times between 1557 and 1596. Why? Because gold gave them confidence, but not discipline. The more they had, the more they borrowed. Wars against France and England drained their treasuries, and their golden age collapsed under the weight of their own loans. 3 and 6. Debt enters the stage. Debt, the silent architect of every empire's destiny. You see, credit existed long before coins. Anthropologists like David Graeber note that ancient societies operated on systems of promise and obligation, debt before money. But with empires came scale, and with scale came interest. When an empire wanted to expand, to build armies, fleets, railways, it needed capital. And when taxes weren't enough, it turned to debt. Take the Ottoman Empire. In the 19th century, after years of war and modernization efforts, the Ottomans began borrowing heavily from European lenders. By 1875, they defaulted, and European powers formed the Ottoman Public Debt Administration, effectively taking control of the empire's finances. Think about that. A 600-year empire lost its sovereignty not to war, but to debt. And that's the loop we keep seeing. An empire rises, backed by gold or resources. It borrows to expand its power. Wars, luxury, and corruption drain its reserves. Debt piles up. The empire collapses, or loses control to its creditors. Every major civilization, from the Romans to the British, from the Ottomans to the Americans, has followed this cycle. 6. 8. The pattern revealed. Let's break the pattern down. Stage 1. The Gold Era. This is when an empire looks invincible. Its economy is booming, trade is flourishing, gold reserves are high. Stage 2. The credit expansion. The empire wants more. It builds roads, armies, colonies. It borrows, believing growth will never stop. Stage 3. The debt spiral. As expenses exceed revenue, interest payments pile up. The empire prints money or debases its currency. Stage 4. The collapse. Inflation, social unrest, and loss of confidence follow. The currency dies, and so does the empire. Spain, the British Empire, even the United States have danced through these exact same stages. The names change, the technology evolves, but the pattern, gold, debt, collapse, remains identical. 8 and 10. The Spanish example. Let's go back to Spain, because it's the perfect case study. By 1550, Spain controlled vast territories across Europe, the Americas, and Asia. Ships loaded with gold and silver poured into Seville's harbors every month. The Spanish crown thought it had infinite wealth. But the more gold they brought in, the more they spent, mostly on wars. King Philip II borrowed massively from German and Italian bankers to finance conflicts in the Netherlands, France, and England. Here's the twist. That very gold caused inflation. Prices soared, trade slowed, and Spain's own industries collapsed because imported goods became cheaper than domestic production. By 1596, Spain was bankrupt again, despite having imported over 300 tons of gold and 16,000 tons of silver from the New World. Gold had become their curse. As the historian Niall Ferguson wrote in The Ascent of Money, "Empires fall when their debt costs more than their dreams." Spain's dream of endless gold turned into centuries of poverty and decline. And that same illusion, that gold and debt can coexist forever, has haunted every empire since. 10-12 Cyrus, the birth of modern finance. When the old empires crumbled, new ones learned their lessons, or thought they did. The British Empire in the 18th and 19th centuries built its financial dominance not just on gold, but on credit and trust. London became the world's banker. The gold standard, introduced in the 1870s, linked every major currency to gold. On paper, it was a perfect system. Every pound or dollar had a golden backing. But wars, again, broke the illusion. World War I forced Britain, France, and Germany to suspend gold payments. They printed money to pay for soldiers and weapons. The result? Hyperinflation, economic collapse, and political chaos across Europe. By the 1930s, the gold standard was dead. The world realized that gold could not keep up with human ambition or human debt. And yet, when the dust settled after World War II, a new empire rose, the United States. The US dollar replaced gold as the global standard. Under the Bretton Woods system of 1944, every currency was pegged to the dollar, and the dollar itself was backed by gold at $35 an ounce. But once again, the pattern began to repeat, quietly. As centuries passed, the pattern didn't just continue, it intensified. Gold was no longer locked inside castles or temples. It now flowed through wires, traded in invisible markets, controlled by algorithms and digital ledgers. But the story stayed the same. Every empire that believed it could outsmart the laws of economics met the same fate. In the 18th century, France was the richest power in Europe. It built palaces, funded wars, and printed paper money backed by promises. But when the people realized the gold reserves were gone, those promises turned to ash. The result? Revolution. Kings were executed, the currency collapsed, and Paris burned. 2 centuries later, America repeated the same pattern, only on a global scale. After World War II, the world trusted the dollar because it was backed by gold. Every dollar meant something real, something physical. But in 1971, President Richard Nixon quietly broke that link. He said, "From now on, the dollar is no longer backed by gold." It was the modern equivalent of ancient emperors melting down coins to make more. And just like that, money became infinite, and debt became the new gold. The 1980s brought credit cards, the 1990s brought easy loans, and the 2000s brought trillion-dollar bailouts. Every time the debt bubble grew, it felt like prosperity. But it was only a mirage. Because true wealth, the kind that builds empires, can't be printed. It has to be earned, mined, or created. By 2008, the cycle turned again. Banks collapsed, trust evaporated, and governments stepped in to print even more money to save the system. But the truth was clear to anyone paying attention. Debt had replaced gold as the foundation of the world economy. And that foundation was cracking. Today, in the 21st century, we are watching history repeat, just with new actors. Instead of kings, we have central bankers. Instead of royal mints, we have digital servers. And instead of golden coins, we have numbers glowing on screens. But remember, gold doesn't lie. You can't print it. You can't fake it. And that's why quietly, the world's most powerful nations are once again turning to gold. China and Russia have been hoarding gold reserves at a scale the world hasn't seen in decades. Meanwhile, Western nations are drowning in record-breaking debt, borrowing from the future to pay for the present. It's the same story ancient Rome once told itself, just before its empire fell. You might be wondering, if we all know the pattern, why does no one stop it? The answer is simple, because the pattern benefits those at the top, until it doesn't. Empires rise because of discipline, innovation, and hard money. They fall because of greed, corruption, and easy credit. And the transition between those two stages always looks the same. First comes prosperity, then arrogance, then collapse. And right now, the signs are everywhere. The U.S. national debt has crossed $35 trillion. Global debt stands above $300 trillion, more than 3 times the world's GDP. Inflation is rising, trust is falling, and people are searching for something real again, something solid, something that doesn't vanish when the Wi-Fi goes out. That SY gold, an ancient rock that has been valuable for 5,000 years, is once again being called the future of money. But here's the part that most people miss. It's not just about gold. It's about the psychology behind it. Every empire, every civilization, every system of power depends on one thing: trust. When people stop believing in the currency, they stop believing in the empire. That's why Rome collapsed. That's why the British pound lost its crown. And that's why the dollar's dominance is now under question. You see, the story of gold and debt isn't just economic. It's human. We keep repeating it because we keep forgetting. Every generation believes this time is different, but it never is. So where does that leave us today? Standing on the edge of a new cycle, a world where nations are quietly building new alliances, where digital currencies and gold-backed systems are being tested behind closed doors, and where the balance of power is shifting, away from paper money, back to something real. The question isn't if the cycle will repeat. The question is when, and who will rise next when it does. Because if history has taught us one thing, it's this. Every empire believes it will last forever. Every currency thinks it's invincible. And every time, gold waits patiently, watching the cycle unfold again and again. Now tell me in the comments, which country are you watching from right now? Because no matter where you are, you're living through the same story the Romans, the British, and the Americans once lived. The names change, the technology changes, but the pattern never does.